Hey everyone, Kevin Lewis with Home Life Benchmark Titus Realty, and it's time for your June 2023 Fraser Valley Real Estate Market Update. I know I probably sound like a bit of a broken record by now, saying how balance is likely to come into the near future, yet it never really seems to happen. However, we're finally seeing in May 2023 a whole bunch of new listings that's really building the inventory back up to numbers that we'd like to see, closer to where we'd like to see them for this time of year. With over 3,200 new listings in May, we brought the total inventory numbers up to just over 4,700. Now, this still isn't an excess number of homes compared to the number of buyers out there, but it's certainly getting better as far as just having no homes to choose from if you're looking to purchase. Those 3,200 new listings in the month are actually just above the 10-year average for the month of May. However, that 10-year average varies quite drastically from year to year, so it's very difficult to really come up with a 10-year average for the total inventory, as it's actually, or for the new listing, sorry, as it just varies from year to year depending on what the market's really doing. But we can still look at it because it is a 10-year average, so it does give us a basic idea of where we'd like to see it, and we're coming in just about 3% above. Those 3,200 new listings are quite a jump compared to April, with 46% more new listings in May than we saw in April 2023. That brings our total inventory number, as I mentioned, up to just over 4,700, which is about a 17% increase in comparison to April 2023. And it's actually a drop compared to last year, May 2022. But we have to take into account that was right after the market started turning down. So we still had a ton of sellers carried on by the momentum that we were seeing record high prices in March, even into April for part of it. However, the buyers just pumped the brakes hard. So we had a whole lot of new listings come on, but not many buyers. And that's where we had very high active listings last May, just because we had no sales. So this year we have sales at a pretty decent pace. We have new listings coming at a pretty decent pace, and that's creating much more balance in the market. And that's really what we're seeing and experiencing with boots on the ground. Now, when I say balance is returning to the market, I don't mean that multiple offers are completely gone and we're back into a market where it's back like 2012, sorry, when, yeah, you list your home for sale, it'll take about a month. You can do 3 months closing, take your time and find the next home pretty easily. And here's a subject to sale of your house, this and that. We're still not back to that kind of market for the most part. Subject to sale is still happening, of course, and that'll happen in any market. Um, However, multiple offers are, while they are still happening, they're definitely not happening on every property the way that they were about a year and a half ago in 2022 when everything was just chaos. So there's definitely relief on that side of things, and we're starting to see, with the numbers that I just mentioned, more and more listings coming onto the market and not necessarily more sales happening. So as that active inventory continues to build up, we will likely continue to see more balance in the market. Now, speaking of balance, the metric that we use with the Fraser Valley Real Estate Board is the sales to active listing ratio. Anything above 20% is considered a seller's market. Anything between 12 and 20% is a balanced market, and anything below 12% is a buyer's market. Now, for most of the last 10 years, we've been in a pretty heavy seller's market. In my opinion, we may need to reevaluate those percentages and those ratios as to what constitutes a buyer's and a seller's market, as we are still sitting around 35% sales to active listing ratio, which means 35 out of every 100 homes listed is going to sell in a given month. So that is definitely still in seller's market territory. However, we have to take into account where we've had several months where we've been above 100%, which means that more sales happen than new homes list in a month. Those are, of course, going to be the times when we have multiple offers on absolutely every property, and whatever you list, it's likely going to sell if you've listed it anywhere within reason of its actual market value. We're not in that market. I don't think we're getting back to that market necessarily anytime soon. And of course, what always is the biggest question on everybody's mind is, what are prices doing? Well, prices have gone up about 2.7% for the month, which is again quite strong growth given that's a month to month increase. And a traditional typical year in real estate growth would be between 4 to 6%. We've already well past that for this year. However, we are recovering from a pretty big drop from March 2022. So we're likely to continue to see these prices increase, maybe not so steep into the next couple of months. As I mentioned, we're building that inventory, and ultimately everything comes back to the law of supply and demand. If you have a big supply and a big demand, well, you're breaking even and things are likely going to stay somewhat balanced. If we have a low supply and a high buying demand, well, that's when prices are going to skyrocket. Again, we're not there. We're probably somewhere closer to here where we're still not quite at a balanced market with the total number of listings that are coming on, but the buyers are also quite hesitant as well. So we're not seeing record-breaking number of sales in a month, even though we have some inventory to sort of support that. If you look back historically, we have more inventory than in our record-breaking years. So it's certainly possible for things to take off based on what we have numbers there. However, I would say it's extremely unlikely to see anything like what happened last year happen again in the next couple months for sure. Probably not likely for the next couple of years. Now, we certainly have to take into account the fact that interest rates were just, or Canada Prime interest rates were just increased by 1/4% on Wednesday, June 7th. So we have to certainly take that into account because that is pretty much the reason we've sort of figured out why house prices started to fall in March 2022. As I've mentioned several times, I've done a little bit of studies here and there that show that monthly payments were staying relatively stable while prices dropped and interest rates increased. So that ratio has maintained itself, and actually in the last couple of months has actually grown. So affordability has gotten tougher in the last couple of months because interest rates have still held steady, yet prices have gone up. So that's increasing or decreasing your affordability, I should say. So we have to be wary of this latest rate hike. As we know, in March 2022, the first rate hike, a lot of buyers pumped the brakes and the market really started to fall. I don't think that they're predicting, or nobody's really predicting more rate hikes or any substantial rate hikes above this. However, we never know what's going to happen into the future, and buyers often are a little bit cautious when interest rates are going up because that means that borrowing on that $1 million is increasing your monthly payments by a fairly substantial amount per month based on that 0.25% increase. So we have to be aware of that, recognize that it's happening, and take a look at what that really is likely to mean for the future of the real estate market. I'm not predicting any drastic changes here. I do think we're going to see some would-be buyers pump the brakes and get hesitant on things, but I'm still seeing people ready to list their homes, ready to sell, and I've got buyers that are ready to go, looking at properties, ready to make an offer, not really paying too much attention because at the end of the day, we all still need a place to live. Investors are going to be the ones who are going to be a little more cautious, maybe a little bit less likely to sell, and they'll get into a holding position until prices reach back up again. But everybody's going to be unique, and everybody's tolerance for the different risks is going to be different, right? So based on that recent hike, I'm not going to make any bold predictions off of that. Just going to say we have to watch what's happening with that. And if there is another hike, that could cause prices to come down again. And again, keeping that affordability, your average monthly payments based on the average house price, about the same. So what does all this mean if you're looking to buy or sell in the near future? Well, if we're getting back towards balance, it means that probably a pretty decent time to buy and probably a pretty decent time to sell. Not necessarily the greatest to do either, but really there isn't a perfect time to do any of those things until you look at it through hindsight, because hindsight is 2020, and it's always easy to say I could have done this, I should have done that, should have done this. It's impossible to do that from where we stand today, looking 6 months into the future. So if you are thinking of buying, thinking of selling, and you're wondering what the best timing is, I always say the best timing for any of these is when it makes sense for you to do it based on your lifestyle. Now, of course, everybody's going to be a little bit unique, and if whatever your situation is, there's going to be different advice for different strokes for different folks, I should say. So if you are thinking of making a move in the near future, be sure to reach out sometime soon. Definitely happy to help. Even if you're thinking 2 years into the future, it doesn't matter. We can start making a plan. We can start monitoring the market together, give you a really good idea of what your expectations are going to be once you are ready to either buy or sell or do both, and just keep on top of things so that you know what's happening and there's no real surprises when you come time to make your move happen. Thanks for tuning in. I love hearing all of your questions and comments and what your thoughts are about this newsletter and the videos and what you think is happening in the market right now. So be sure to leave a comment below, send me a message, send me a phone call, 604-218-5635. Like I say, I always look forward to hearing from you, whether it is just a commentary on the market, or if you have questions for me about the market or about your home and starting a plan to get your next move ready and make it as stress-free as possible.